Hello everyone and welcome back to the Cyclocross Social Podcast. It's the week after the National Championships and we have another guest on our podcast to talk about some cyclocross with. With us here is Pan American champion Maghalie Rochette. Hey Maghalie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Could you maybe introduce yourself a bit to our listeners?
Sure. So my name is Maghalie. I'm from Canada. I live in a French-speaking part of Canada. So the province is called Quebec. The biggest town that people might know that is close to me is Montreal. So I live close to Montreal, just a bit north of that. I'm 27 years old. I race for my own privateer cyclocross team called Specialized Feedback Sports. And yeah, I love cyclocross. I don't know what else to say about myself, but I think that's a short, very short introduction.
Well, I think that will withstand. To get a bit of better picture, we'll ask you some snap questions. These will be easy questions. So let's start off right away. Would you prefer a race that's muddy or more grass parkour?
I really like mud, but sometimes I do like grass races. But yeah, let's say mud for the purpose of the question. Mud.
A slow or fast parkour? It kind of fits in mud, slow, grass, fast.
Oh yeah, I mean I actually like mud that is slippery instead of like really thick mud. That's not my favorite, but slippery mud that you kind of have to be like finesse is as much as important as fitness is really cool to me. So I'd say like kind of fast but muddy. That's my favorite.
And for the barriers, would you fancy a bunny hop or a run?
Mostly, most of the time running.
And of all the parkours that you races, which one is your favorite?
I My go-to answer is usually Namur or their World Cup in Jingle Cross that we had in the US, but I think we recently raced the Herentals race, and I really enjoyed that course. So I think that's like the Herentals is up there in my favorites.
Oh, it was certainly a nice race to watch. What is your favorite tire thread?
Well, the one that fits the conditions the best. So I kind of like them all, but I don't really have a favorite. But usually I race with challenge tires, so I like all of them, and I actually like the fact that they make a bunch of different ones, so I can choose the one that's good for the conditions.
What's your favorite meal?
Oh, good question. Right now I would totally eat pizza, so I'm saying pizza.
And with a pizza, which show on Netflix goes on?
Oh my god, good question. I don't actually watch TV that much, but Netflix. I like cooking shows, so like I've enjoyed Ugly Delicious with Dave Chang. Like before I think they used to be on Netflix, but I really like the Anthony Bourdain series Parts Unknown. They're not on Netflix anymore, but I really enjoyed that one. So yeah, I guess I don't really have an answer.
And then our last of the snap questions. What would you consider to be your career best result?
Winning the World Cup in Iowa last year.
Let's go on to talk about cycling. How did you get into cycling or cyclocross?
So my dad used to ride bikes when I was really young, like 7 or 8 years old, and I started riding with him mountain bikes because I thought it was cool that he was doing that. And so I was doing mountain bike and triathlon actually at that time. And then later on as a teenager, I kind of went more into triathlon. But then I at around age 18, I got injured. I couldn't run as much as I wanted to, so I quit triathlon and I kind of got more into cycling. And that's when a friend of mine told me, hey, you should come and try a cyclocross race. So we had like really local races back home. And so I looked up what it was and it looked fun to me. So I bought a bike. Back then I was working at a running shoe store. So I had a little bit of money, bought a super cheap bike, went to my first cyclocross race and I absolutely loved it. So from that point, I started doing a little bit more cyclocross and got a bit more into it. I then started to travel to the USA to do some of their races because there's a pretty cool racing scene in the US. So I started going there and just got hooked more and more the more I did it, the more I got hooked on it. And so Yeah, that's kind of how I started. I was about maybe 19 when I started, but maybe 20 when I started doing it a little bit more. And at that, yeah, so that's kind of how I started. And at the same time, like as I was getting into cyclocross, I also restarted racing mountain bikes because I had done it as a kid, but I had stopped all these years for triathlon. So at about the same time, 19, 20, I got back into mountain biking as well.
You already mentioned it that you started to ride the races in the USA. How do these races compare themselves to the races over here in Europe?
It's completely different, actually. It's just not the same atmosphere at all. Like the races in Europe, it's really professional oriented. So it's only pros that can race those races. Um, so it's really like basically you come there the morning of the race, you park your car, or if you're lucky enough your RV, you do the race, boom, you go back home. Whereas in the US, it's usually kind of a it's more of an event than just a race. Like it's a kind of a festival every weekend, basically. So you often arrive on Friday night, and then you go pre-ride, and all the teams are there, and everyone's there, and so there's more like you kind of hang out with people. Then you race on Saturday, and then all day there's amateur races, so there's kids races, and everyone who loves cyclocross also race. And then the last race of the day is usually the pro races, so everyone who raced all day stay to watch the pros race. So the spectators are different because they just did the race, so it's kind of a different vibe. Like no one drink. I mean, people drink beer, but no one drink like smokes cigarette in your face when you're racing. So it's very very different vibe. And then on Sunday we do it all over again. So usually like there's this the race will be at the same course on Saturday and on Sunday. So yeah, it's like kind of a 3-day thing. So you get to talk to people a lot more and hang out with people a lot more. So yeah, it's very different. That said, like it's kind of there. I think there's positive on both sides. Like maybe for someone growing up, it's maybe that the fun factor is maybe higher in the US, I would say, in my opinion. However, I mean, it's no secret that the level is higher in Europe. So for me, at the level where I'm at now, it's really fun coming to Europe and being really, really challenged. I mean, here in Europe, there are so many girls that are really strong that 20 people, like even when you're in the top 20, it's like really, really strong competition and everyone fights for each spot and it's really intense racing. So to kind of higher your level, it's really beneficial to come race in Europe. Yeah, so I think like there's positives at both. I love racing. I really love racing in the US. I love racing in Europe as well, but it's like, yeah, it's really different.
So first you raced there a lot in the United States. Was there eventually like a trend of better and better results, and that resulted in you eventually coming to race more and more in Europe as well?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the first time I came to Europe was in 2014, and I was starting to. I was younger. I was still an under 23, and I was starting to be more regularly on the podium in the US races. And at the time, like a lot of European riders were coming to the US to race as well. So the level was quite high, and I felt like if I was able to do podiums in those races, I could probably like be good enough to race in Europe, like not being lapped. And so I did go to Europe and I raced the Cuxida World Cup. That was my first European race, which was kind of a shock. And then I did the Milton Keynes World Cup, which was really fun as well. So I mean, I guess as a racer, like you watch the races in Europe and you want to know how you compare to these people. So when you reach a certain level, you definitely want to know like, okay, well now I can do this in the US. Like how will that compare to other people racing in Europe? So yeah, I guess as I started being a little bit better in the US, I wanted to come more. And then in the past few years, I've been having better and better results in the US and winning a lot of races there. So now it's like if you want to be, not that I'm not challenged at home because I totally am, but if you want to be even more challenged, it's like, all right, well, the next step to become a better racer and to be extremely challenged in all possible ways is to go to Europe. And then like now that opens kind of another conversation because as North American racers, there's like the races are challenging, but everything around is extremely challenging as well, which adds a layer of difficulty if you want.
Do you think it's also fair to say that your 2016-2017 season was really your breakout season with your first Canadian title, but also a fifth place at the World Championships in BLS?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think so. That was when I, like, after that season, that's also when I realized that I wanted to do more cyclocross, because back then I was doing as much or like a little bit more mountain biking than cyclocross. And then I really had a good season and I really had fun that year in cyclocross, and that's when I realized like that's what I love the most and that's what I want to invest myself in.
So then if we focus a bit on where we are now, this is your third season that you're racing for yourself. This is your first full season that you're in Europe. Is this really your ambition to keep on racing for your own team? Or if, let's say, a team like Telenet or any other big Belgian team offers you a contract, is that really what you're after? Or is this really the way that you see yourself going forward in the future?
That's a good question, because I think a lot of people have asked me this question, so I'm glad we're saying it now. But no, I'm really happy having my own program, and I want to keep it that way. I raced for a big team before. I raced for the Cliff Pro team for 5 years, and I really had fun there, and I grew a lot as an athlete there, and I think it was awesome to have teammates, and I just learned a lot from the structure and all of that. But I'm really happy running my own program, and I do it in a team with my boyfriend, who his name is David, and we do everything together, and I really enjoyed that. For me, like being able to have the direct relationships with my sponsors and being able to do some different projects off the bike with them is really fulfilling. It's really stimulating for me more than, I mean, I really love racing, and of course that's my focus and that my main goal, to like improve as a racer and just like keep improving and getting better and better. However, like I'm at my happiest when I can also do something else. So yeah, it just like mentally it's fulfilling for me to, yeah, as I said, like kind of maintain those relationships with the sponsors and think about creative ways of how I can represent them better. It's also, I enjoy the flexibility that I have when running my own program. Like if I'm sick one morning, I can decide not to go to a race, and I don't owe anything to anyone. Like I can make that decision for myself, and sometimes that's the best decision. Like if I'm sick, probably the best decision is to not race. But if you're a part of a big team, sometimes like it's just such a big machine that you can't, like, you can't really say anything, so you have to go race. So for those reasons, I really enjoy having my own program. That said, of course, like there's a lot more work, so I know that spending more energy and more time doing all the stuff that's off the bike. But it also, as much as sometimes it takes some time and energy, it also gives me energy when things are going well, and I have like this, I feel the support of my partners and all of that. It's really motivating. So yeah, my goal is really to keep going that way, and I really enjoy it.
All that energy that you were talking about, we really saw it last year when you won the first round of the World Cup in Iowa. Could you tell us a bit about that race?
Yeah, I mean that was really cool. It was cool because for many things, like it's kind of for yourself, for myself it was kind of confirmation that I can be at the top level. So that was really cool. But I think the most cool of winning that race is that we had, as a team, like we had targeted that race as the one that I wanted to be at my best. I knew like it was in North America, so that's like easier for me. I knew the course. I had already raced on that course before, so I knew it. I knew how to prepare optimally for it, and I think we prepared really well. And having on that day everything come together and be able to perform was special, and especially all like being able to share it with the team that like with the people that I worked with to get there. So David and a few other people said it was really a special day. Yeah, it was really cool.
Last year you also became Pan American champion for the second year in a row. This year the race is cancelled. Does this mean you keep your title until they host the Pan American Championships again next year?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how it works. So it's weird because, it kind of feels weird to be able to to wear it without winning, but I guess like the way they see it is like the last person who won that race still gets to wear the jersey. So I guess I am the last person who still won that race. So yeah. So hopefully things go back to normal next year and we're able to have that race again.
And then to this season. This season is your full season that you're completely in Europe. How would you say that things are going?
Oof, they are going up and down, and they're most, yeah, it's kind of hard to say. It was like I came here on October 1st, and the reason I came in October is that I wanted to participate in the mountain bike world championships and the mountain bike world championships. So I came early, and at that moment we didn't know what would happen about the cyclocross season and if the races would even happen this season. However, it seemed at that time that a few races were happening. We could see that the mountain bike world cups had been happening. So I thought, me and David, actually, who is my boyfriend, we run the team together. We thought, you know what, if it looks like if there's going to be, and people, at that time, people were talking about the second wave, that everything might close down again. But at that time, it seemed like races were happening. So we thought, if we want a race, it's now. Like, we're going to go to Europe, do a few races, and then if it gets canceled, we just go home. But at least we'll have raced. Like, we'll have shown our partners that we really tried and we really raced. So that's what we did. But then like things started, things never stopped again. So it's been challenging in a sense that we got there and we didn't even rent a house. We didn't even rent a place to stay, because at that time it was also like, if you rented something, all the companies were saying, we won't reimburse you because things can get canceled because of COVID or whatever. And for us, it was like, if I wanted to rent a house for the whole winter, it was maybe 15,000 euros. So I didn't want to invest that much money and risk having it canceled. So what we did is we rented an RV, a camper van, and we stayed in the camper van for a long time. For like maybe the first 2 months, we were just like in the camper van and sometimes renting like a week here in an Airbnb and a week there. Then the lockdowns happened and we couldn't rent Airbnbs again, so we were back in the RV, and it was like pretty stressful, to be honest, and like pretty challenging. But at some point we realized that the races would keep happening, so we finally were able to rent something in mid-November. We rented a place in Sittard in the Netherlands, and that, since we got there, it's been kind of nice to have stability, and through that the races started well. Early in October I did a few good races in Ruddervoort and stuff like that, where I was in the top 10, and Bern, I went on a podium. So a few races were doing good. I think my fitness was good, but I've been struggling with a lot of other things. So yeah, after that, it started going well again in December. Early December, I was like finally finding my groove. I felt happy and I felt like things were kind of going good. We had a place to stay and all of that. So it started going good, and then I kind of sprained my ankle at the race in Gavere. That kind of blew up my plans a little bit, and then I like for the whole Christmas period I was just recovering from that. So I can't say it's been going well. Like it really it really hasn't been easy and really hasn't been going well. But I'm still in a sense like pretty proud that we came here and that we committed to being here 4 months. Like, it's not easy being away from home for 4 months. I think anyone who's tried it will say it. But I'm pretty proud that we've been able to do it and still being able to do our best every day to stay positive, to create some momentum and do our best at the races. So there are definitely some good positive stuff. We learned a lot during that trip. But I can't say that the races have been going well, and I can't say that I'm satisfied with how I've been performing. However, it does look like that was the best I could do this year, so I'm hoping that I can kind of salvage something for the end of the year.
You mentioned that injury to your ankle that you got in Gavere. And then you said you were recovering for the Christmas period, but now the Christmas and New Year's period, it's over this weekend. As we're recording, the national championships of the most other countries are. Does this rest come at a perfect moment for you so you can repack yourself for the end of the season, including the World Championships?
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad that I was able to make it through the Christmas period, and it did get better. Like now, my ankle is okay, so I can train fully, and I'm back, so that's good. But yes, the rest was good. I took a few days of rest, and now I'm in Spain, and I'm hoping to build some fitness and like basically go all in for Worlds. I have nothing to lose at this point, so I'm really trying to prepare as best I can and hopefully arrive strong and healthy and ready to go for the last two races of the season, so the last World Cup and Worlds.
Do you think the parcours in Ostend suits you?
I don't know. I guess it's a kind of a new parcours they're doing this year. So I mean, there's sand. I know there's sand, but who knows if it's gonna be like riding sand or a lot of running. If there's a lot of running, usually that fits me pretty well. So I can't really. I don't know, to be honest. We'll see I'll know when I see it a little bit more. But I don't. There haven't been much information on that course yet.
So then I think it must be a bit premature to already have a result in your mind to target if you don't really know what kind of parcours you can expect.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But I mean, I know it's going to be a tough race. Like all the girls, everyone's targeting Worlds, so everyone wants to be good there. And the girls are really strong. But considering how tough this year has been, I'd be happy. I'd be kind of happy with a top 10 and extremely happy with a top 5, I guess.
I definitely think a top 10 result there would be great. Do you think that your performances have any influence on the situation of cyclocross in Canada? And how is that situation of cyclocross actually in Canada?
It's not that big in Canada. It's growing though, and that's really cool. I can see like at the local level, provincial level, like the races are getting bigger and bigger. So there's more and more people coming to race. It will never get as big as it is in Europe, I'm pretty sure. However, like the sport is getting more known, and I don't know if I have an impact. I hope I can. Like one of the things that I would like to that I'm hoping I can share with young riders that are hoping to turn pro and that love cyclocross in Canada. What I would like to tell them is that it's possible to make a career out of cyclocross. It's not like you don't have to go on the road. You don't have to go on a mountain bike. If cyclocross is what you love, you can make a career out of it. And then I think that's important to tell people because it's such a small sport where I'm from. And since it is not an Olympic sport, we don't really get funding from the government for it. Whereas the other disciplines, so track and road and mountain bike, do get funding from the government because they're Olympic sports. So I think because of that, a lot of kids that would love to go in cyclocross, they just don't believe that it's possible to make a career out of it. But it really is. And like I'm making a career out of it, and I make pretty good living out of racing cyclocross. So that's what I hope to tell people, is that to tell young racers is that if they want to do it, like it's totally possible, and there's actually great opportunities for people who want to make cyclocross their career. So if there's any impact I can have, I hope that's it. That can be one. But it's kind of cool seeing the sport develop and become bigger. Like it's fun seeing more and more people at the races, or even more people watching the races in Canada. So that's cool.
Well, I think it's really interesting what you said about the fact that it isn't an Olympic sport, because the last couple of weeks the question if it should or should not be an Olympic sport has risen a bit here in the Netherlands and Belgium, and I think this is definitely one of the reasons that the sport would benefit from it being able to become an Olympic sport, because exactly of the reason that you said, that more funding would also mean more possibilities for non-typical cyclocross countries other than the Netherlands and Belgium.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, then the final question here is, do you think that there's any potential in the coming 5 or 10 years that we would see a World Cup race in Canada with the new expanding World Cup calendar?
That would be amazing. You know what? I think there is a possibility. A few years ago, They tried to have a World Cup in Montreal, and what happened is that the main spot and the person who actually tried to put it on is a really experienced organizer. It's a person who brought the UCI Mountain Bike World Cup in Mont Saint Anne for 30 years. So they really have experience, and they are well respected at the UCI. So what happened is that it got canceled kind of at the last minute because the main sponsor was like got pulled out because of like government rules. Actually, like they decided to pull it out, so it fell apart. However, like knowing that people are interested in putting one, and now knowing that the World Cup calendar is getting more international, it would be I mean, I think there is, like, I'm not saying it's a big chance, but there's a small chance, which is already something. And it would be really cool if I can ever help to make that happen. For me, that would be like a career highlight. If I could race a World Cup on home soil, that would be amazing.
Well, then I think we had it for this episode of the Cyclocross Social Podcast. I would like to thank our guest Maghalie for coming on.
Thank you for having me. That was fun.
And we will keep an eye on your results and performances for the rest of the season, and we wish you the best of luck at the World Championships. Thanks everyone for listening to this episode. If you liked it, make sure to share it with your friends or give it a rating if you're listening on Apple Podcast. And with that said, later this weekend we will be back with more cyclocross action, and that would be for the Zilvermeer Cross in Mol. Goodbye.